buzzer, and that'll do it. On a strong and easy Sunday in Tampa, the 40th season for Gino Auriemma. The final page has been written, and the final sentence is UConn women's basketball 2025 national champions.
All right, there was not a whole lot of drama in Tampa. 3 games, they were all blowouts. UConn, however, gets its storybook ending. Paige Bueckers and company, Huskies, add to their record with a 12th national championship. It's in style, capping another season of women's college basketball. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the final edition this year of the Gauer Hour. Rob Joyce, Megan Gauer, a jubilant alumnus of the University of Connecticut. So, Megan, here's an oldie but a goodie. 2 blowouts. Is UConn bad for women's basketball?
Oh, I'm glad we are past the days of that being the headline from this championship. I can say that much.
Take me through Tampa. How was it?
It was good. It was hot. It was 90 degrees and sunny, which getting off the plane back in Connecticut to 40 and rain yesterday was a little rough. But it was good. It was warm. Obviously, like you said, the games didn't leave a whole lot of excitement because they were all blowouts, but obviously happy for UConn and for Paige that she gets to end her career the way she was hoping to.
I mean, give me the rundown. You were there like Wednesday morning. So
Yeah.
press conferences weren't until Thursday. I mean, I know you had stuff Saturday, but like hitting the beach? What are we doing?
I worked, so nothing exciting. That pesky day job. At least to get in the
way. We'll talk about all 3 games at some point over the course. We might have a guest here, probably 10 minutes or so as well. Surprise guest. Old school UConn performance. 34-point beatdown of UCLA in the semis. 23-point round, and frankly, it wasn't that close against South Carolina on Sunday. It kind of felt like it's like an era that I thought kind of passed us by.
Yeah. And I think it's just fascinating that it was like this team that won in that fashion, because as much as I like went into the weekend thinking like they had a good chance to win it all the way they were playing, like I never would have imagined they would have won it in the fashion that they did. And I think especially you're talking about a team, right, that like it lost games during the weekend. Like we didn't go undefeated like South Carolina, or during the season, not the weekend. It didn't go undefeated like a South Carolina team last year. Like they've been good down the stretch, but like it just wouldn't be like I don't think anyone would have predicted the margins that happened in these games.
No, I mean, after that Tennessee loss, especially, I think you and I both, like talking before the show, was like, yeah, we're kind of out. And there was no reason really to be in on them, right? Like the 3 biggest games of the year to that point: lost at Notre Dame, lost to USC, even with the second half comeback, lost at Tennessee. And like, sure, they beat up on a bunch of bad Big East teams. They had some decent wins, beat North Carolina basically on a road game, beat Ole Miss. But like, there's no reason to think, frankly, like when it actually matters, they're going to win. And then they beat South Carolina by 29 in Columbia. And then obviously that's the turning point, because after that, they just, even against, bad Big East teams, like they looked the part from that point on. What do you think, if anything, switched from that point on?
I think what must have happened is because that South Carolina game was very shortly after the Tennessee game. And I feel like that Tennessee loss like woke them up, because I think if you look back at like Notre Dame and even USC, you're like, oh, we don't really have AZ. Like, they were close. Like the USC one in particular was like a very close game. They came back, they lost by a couple points, like some missed 3 throws at the end. And then I think to go to Tennessee and lose, like that wasn't a top 5 game. That wasn't a game they were supposed to lose. And I feel like something clicked for them when they lost that game. And then you saw it click very quickly in the performance they had at South Carolina. And I don't think they were consistently that good from like the South Carolina game on, but I think they kind of built towards being consistently that good through the rest of the season. And then once they got to the postseason, obviously we all saw how they just tore through every team they played pretty much.
And obviously the story is the storybook ending for Paige, right? Yeah. But she wasn't the star of the Final Four. She was decent in the 2 games. And I wonder how much, not only that they beat South Carolina in Columbia, but how they did it. Like Jenna El Alfie was great. AZ had her best game to that point as a Husky. And maybe most importantly, Paige didn't play that well, at least shooting. She didn't shoot that well in Columbia. So I wonder how much of, Paige was 3 of 12, and we just did that to what is right now the standard in women's basketball. Oh, okay.
Like we could be really
then you see it this weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with that, and like you said, like Paige was fantastic. Obviously, regional weekend, and she was good this weekend, but she wasn't like she didn't score 40 again. She didn't go out there and shoot the ball like insanely well, but she was good. And then Azia and Sarah were phenomenal, and like that was what. And I mean, Jenna on Friday night against UCLA was phenomenal. They got the other pieces as well. And I think that was the difference maker here. And I thought Gino said something good after the game about kind of like how fitting it was for Paige to go out that way because she's always been such an unselfish player, and like she didn't care if she won Final Four Most Outstanding Player. Like she just wanted to win a championship.
If you go back through, I mean, you can call it a drought because it's the longest space of time they went between titles since they won the first one in 95. Lost at the buzzer in 17, basically lost at the buzzer in 18, lost in the Final Four, not handily, but like it wasn't dramatic against Notre Dame in 19, Arizona 21, 22. That young group of Huskies, like somehow Paige drags them to the championship game. They losing the Sweet 16 without her. Last year, they dragged Paige and Aaliyah and 5 kids, basically. So there've been a lot of times, even this year,
right?
My rant after Notre Dame, it's like when they didn't look the part or they were just missing something, they weren't tough enough. It looked like maybe the weight of the words UConn was just too much to bear. Like I questioned whether 12 was ever going to come in the Gino era. Not saying he's washed or anything like it, but you look around, like South Carolina had it rolling. There are more good teams, obviously, than ever. The injuries over those couple of years, you wonder, like maybe it just wasn't ever meant to be. And then it was.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like this year just had that feeling almost a little bit like it was kind of going into the postseason a little bit. It was like, okay, maybe it is their time because Paige is a senior, because they're going there finally with like a full team, which they haven't done in the last few years, and it just kind of felt like, okay, maybe this is the one.
Here's a question. I would argue this might be their most impressive Final Four that UConn's ever had.
Yeah. I'm gonna go through the numbers later today, but like I think it's in terms of even just the whole tournament too, like their margins are like up there with like the 2010 team and like the 2016 team, and you think about like those teams were insane. And then like those were your undefeated national champion type teams, and that's not this team. And those teams also didn't have to play like 3 number 1 seeds to get there, and their numbers still look that way. It's crazy.
That's my argument. Like they're the 4th team to beat 3 1 seeds. Obviously, the USC one, a bit of an asterisk. They still beat them. They beat the number 1 overall seed in record fashion in the semis. They beat the number 2 overall seed, the defending champs. They do those two by combined 57 points. Like go back to some of the best UConn teams ever, who are obviously 1 seeds. So they kind of like they don't get the opportunity to beat 3-1 seeds. The 2015 team, probably the closest. They hammered a 1 seed in Maryland in the semis. They beat 1 seed Notre Dame in the final. The year before, they beat a 2 seed Stanford. And then, of course, undefeated Notre Dame in the final. Like 2004, they beat up on 1 seed Penn State in the Elite Eight, but then they had to play a 7 seed Minnesota and then a 1 seed in Tennessee. Like the 2003 Final Four, they stole from Texas. They beat Tennessee by 5. So those are 2 close games, but that's probably the closest comp of just they're both 1 seeds in 2003. But they didn't. Those were, I believe, a 7 combined point. Victory and not 57. So I mean it's old school UConn just 10 years later.
It's wild. It, like, especially considering like this team was not the number 1 team in the country at any point this season until the last day of the season, and they weren't undefeated. They weren't any of those things that you like think about, some of those like the type of UConn teams that would just beat up on everyone like that were.
Yeah. Story of the weekend. The one whose college career is over. We'll talk about the other 2 of P.S.A. Give me Paige Bueckers' legacy.
I mean, I think she's up there with the best to come through UConn. Like she's done so much for this program in terms of like, she has, I think, in a way more than their other stars had to carry this team at a lot of times in her career. I think when you look back at like Stewie, for example, like the team was so good. And I think Paige has spent a lot of time and shouldering like the weight for a lot of this team. She's obviously like done so many things that people have not done before, winning National Player of the Year as a freshman, fighting back through her injuries to come back and like take them to every Final Four that she's ever played in, and now she ends it as a national champion. And I think coming from UConn, like it was going to be as good as she was, like hard to put her up there with like the best of the best when you don't have that championship, but I think she gets that, and like it's very clear like her career at UConn has just been insane.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put her on like the Mount Rushmore of players because of the titles. Taurasi, Stewart, Maya, and Paige are the four best probably to ever walk through the doors. Now she has the ring to go along with all the other accolades. And, you know, at UConn, every superstar in the last 30 years has a championship. So that's, you know, that's a glaring hole if you don't have one. And she got it. And Stewie was like the first social media era star. Like no one had more pressure at UConn than Paige, right? Like, as the years went on, especially the injuries, the falling short in the Final Four, like that pressure is something that no other UConn players really had to face. Like Stewie won her, you know, freshman year. Sarah Strong's won her freshman year. No one's going to have like that pressure of she has everything except, you know, the one thing that matters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just in general, like as much as Stewie came in like the social media era was not like what it is now. Right. And like she was on the cover of Slam before she even got to stores the way that like Paige was. So yeah, I think she just came in with so many high expectations and like wins National Player of the Year as a freshman, and then just like you said, it just keeps the title keeps like not coming. And I think there was so much pressure on her. I think she did a good job of handling it this year, but you think you could tell that there was also a lot of pressure this year to like go and win it all.
And one part that I love, especially about women's basketball, for the most part, like most of the players are really easy to root for. And obviously, like you have your allegiances, you have your rivalries, and that's great. And sometimes it gets a little toxic, sure, but like ignore the name on the front of the jersey and look at the person. How do you not root for Paige Bueckers? How do you not root for like Caitlin Clark, the person? AZ Fudd. Like talk to Aaliyah Boston for 2 seconds and you realize, oh, this is like a magnificent human being.
Right.
I talked to Rory Harmon for 2 minutes after an SEC tournament game, and it's like, oh, like what a kid this is. And I there's more. You know, we can go on forever. There's so many good athletes who are also good people. And like, I have a son, not a daughter, but like I want my kid to grow up like Paige Bueckers.
Right.
Like, don't overlook that aspect of this as well.
Yeah, and I think you could see it in the crowd. Like I think there were South Carolina fans that stuck around to watch like the championship, like the trophy and the nets and all of that stuff. Like I think people were, in a way, like a lot of people are rooting for Paige in this one. Not that South Carolina didn't want like their team, fans didn't want their team to win, but like I don't think they sat there and were like, oh, we're like pissed that Paige gets to go out in a way either.
Yeah, and there's a difference. I think we're talking like Mount Rushmore of like I think Gino is indisputably the greatest coach ever.
Oh yeah.
I think indisputably Pat Summitt's the most important coach ever. I think there's a distinction. Like I think Rebecca Lobo is the most important player to ever walk through UConn.
Right.
But then if you're talking, so like she can be under Mount Rushmore, sure. From a pure talent standpoint, Taurasi, Stewart, Maya, Paige is an easy four. For how long?
Yeah.
Because Sarah Strong.
Sarah Strong might be up there.
is already one of the 5 best players in the country. And if I didn't believe it before last weekend, I certainly believe it now.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah, she is so good. Yeah. And she's only probably going to get better. Like she's still a freshman. That's what's crazy.
Yeah, there are lots of comparisons to Maya Moore, which I totally get. The inside-outside combo, the scoring, the rebounding, the coolness by which they both play. Maya, a little more flash. They're different players, but I see Nafisa Collier a little more in Strong, like because there's just not much emotion. It's very direct. Ball in air, rebound, mine. Give me ball. I turn, I put in hoop.
Yeah.
I catch ball, I shoot ball, it goes in. And like there's almost like an aloofness, like I did my job. And then you look up and it's 24 points on 10 of 15 with 15 boards, 5 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals. And I'm a freshman playing in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's just like it doesn't really matter what the moment is, and I think we've seen this all year from her, but like in particularly this past weekend and really throughout the tournament, like there's like no and I don't think she does, not that she doesn't have like a sense of the weight of the moment, but it's just like when she's on the floor, like it doesn't matter that it's a national championship game or like UConn playing Butler on a Tuesday night. Like she kind of shows up the same way and has the same demeanor.
And then the Final Four's most outstanding player. I've been awfully hard on AZ Fudd for whatever reason, whether, I mean, obviously she's finally healthy, but the confidence, whatever it was, no player in the country in the last 8 weeks of the season improved more than AZ Fudd.
Yeah.
24 points on 1-3. Like that seemed unfathomable not that long ago.
Yeah, I think you just like I like the way she scored the 24, like you said, with just the 1-3, because I think you saw like the growth of AZ Fudd. Like she easily could have gone out there and scored 24 and like also had like or scored 30 and had like 3 threes, but I think this is more impressive because like you just saw everything that she can do, that she can get out in transition, that she can make plays in the lane, that she can pull up from the mid-range. Like, there's just so much more versatility to her score. And then obviously she's an excellent three-point shooter, and like that's going to continue to help her and help UConn, but like she can do everything else offensively as well.
And the defense.
Yes,
defense was great.
Defense was great too.
The whole tournament. It's a prodigious talent. I mean, she's the number one recruit in the country coming out of high school, putting it all together. And you see the results, and another, kid that's easy to root for. Yeah. All right, we'll hit pause on UConn. There were 2 other games. We haven't really talked about any of the games. We'll talk about all 3. We'll go chronological order. So we'll go back to Friday night. Round 4, South Carolina, Texas. Longhorns roaring out of the gate. They're up, 12-4, 8, 9 points, something like that. Madison Buecker, it's like, all right, she made her first 3 buckets. So that didn't happen at any point in the first 3 games against South Carolina. Then she picks up 2 early fouls. She gets her 3rd foul and has to sit in that second quarter. And the Longhorns, they hung around. They were down 3 at the half. What were your thoughts at the half? Because I felt like, all right, Texas, trending great, but I thought they were okay, all things considered.
Yeah, I thought they were okay at the half because I was like, okay, you're only down 3, and Madison Buecker has spent a fair amount of time on the bench. So I felt like if you were Texas, you probably felt okay going into the locker room. And then South Carolina, I think you also probably felt pretty good because you had been down a lot more. Now you're up by 3, so you've turned that around. But then the second half was just all South Carolina.
Yeah, tell Texas to 4 of 14 in the 3rd, went 9 of 16 themselves. It's very classic South Carolina. They played smothering defense. They went 9 of 16, and 4 different players had 2 field goals. Just picturesque South Carolina. Didn't have one person overwhelmed you. They get contributions from everyone. They made the second half not dramatic. And talk about stud freshmen. I know Joyce Edwards battled foul trouble on Sunday, but man, what a Final Four debut off the bench. 13-11, 6 assists and 1 turnover from a big. That's someone who, we're talking scary freshman. She's only going to get better.
Yeah, she was phenomenal in their game against Texas, and I agree. I think she's only going to get better next year, and she's just, I think, an interesting player. She's a big, but she's not a stereotypical big. She can do a lot of things on the floor, and I'm excited to see what she looks like next year for South Carolina.
South Carolina's forwards, they can all pass. So she's not quite like a point forward because she doesn't bring the ball up, but she has those tendencies with all of the footwork and the maturity, frankly, of a 5-year, 6-year veteran, not a freshman. And South Carolina, they know what to do with big people. They're going to make her better too.
Yeah, a couple of those have come out of there that have been pretty good.
Yes, we'll hit on Texas here in a bit. Our guest, surprise guest, little late to the party, but that's okay. I told him the wrong time initially. We'll have a surprise guest here when we return next. All right, at the start of the show, you heard the dulcet tones of the UConn play-by-play man on radio, Bob Joyce. If that name sounds familiar. Yeah, Bob Joyce.
It
Rob
does.
Joyce. Yes. This is the 3rd year of this podcast, and it's all right, we don't just need to go to the Bob Joyce well. I can go to the Bob Joyce well whenever. If we're not going to do it now, it's never going to happen.
Right.
So we can just make this conversation, not necessarily an interview, but I will start with a question. How does it feel to be the 3rd most handsome Robert Joyce in your family?
I'm more than okay with that. Thank you for asking. And the little one's number 1, by the way.
Just wait till I shave today, and that'll change.
No chance.
All right.
As your wife said, she married her son.
We do look alike.
You two look alike.
Yes.
Just for those at home, if you had pictures of Rob Joyce when he was little, he and the Robster, dead on. Yes.
Yes. All right. Let's talk hoops.
Okay.
UConn runs away. It felt like, UConn performance of old. I said there were times, frankly, in the last 9 years, they came so close so many times at the buzzer in, 17 and Enrique in the next year, and they've lost in the Final Four. They lost 22 in the title game. You wonder, is this ever going to happen? Is number 12 ever going to happen? Lo and behold, it did. Did you ever have a thought in the last few years, maybe this just isn't meant to be, at least in the Paige era, with everything that they faced?
Yeah, I did. And even up to 7.5 weeks ago, I didn't think that was going to happen. Then all of a sudden they went to Columbia and, we're all sitting there going, what happened? I mean, everything just changed. And, we saw glimpses of it afterwards through the Big East. Now, yeah, there's familiarity with a lot of those opponents. So they were prepared. They added some ball pressure late in the season against Marquette and Creighton, that became suddenly a noticeably different. And then you just saw the train just start rolling as the NCAA tournament went on. Yes, they shot 30% in the first half against Oklahoma, but none of us thought that was going to happen again. And lo and behold, they went off there. And then USC cut it to 5 after 3 in Spokane. Gino draws up a play for AZ Fudd, who hadn't made a shot in the entire game, knocks down a 3. That changed the whole complexity there. And then what they did the last 2 games was just, as you said, Rob, the UConn of old. They have a habit of making really good teams look bad, and that's exactly what they did the 2 games in Tampa this past week. And it was just incredible to watch. And the defensive end obviously keyed the whole thing, but they dictated the pace. They played their style. Now, they didn't make a ton of threes, particularly on Sunday, but they didn't have to. That was amazing. I mean, we could go through some of the numbers, but it was just impressive to watch the Huskies all weekend long.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, just like the way they beat these teams in Tampa. We've talked about it a little bit already here, but it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the numbers from the first South Carolina game. Yeah, okay, they made 13 threes. Or were they like plus 21 on the boards? They had 31 fast break points. I think they only allowed 4 points off turnovers because they took care of the ball. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But then you get into halftime on Sunday. They're minus 10 rebounding. They only had made 1 3. That was Ash's 3 to end the half. And they're still up by 10 because they're doing so much. AZ really transformed herself in the last 8 or 9 weeks, the way she plays. We all know she's a great shooter. Gino and CD have always said she's their best one-on-one player offensively. You got a glimpse of that. But now she's taking chances defensively. You saw that not only on Sunday, stripping Full Wiley twice, but getting her hands in passing lanes. You saw that in the Arkansas State game. Just they want her to be more aggressive defensively, take a few more chances because she didn't want to be the one to get burned and then her teammates having to cover up for her. But she's now starting to be more aggressive, and you saw the payoff there all weekend.
Yeah, we've talked a lot, and Megan, I want your thoughts too. We've talked a lot about P.S.A, Paige, Sarah, AZ. How about Caitlin, Chen? How about Jana El-Alfi? Because, I mean, Jana set the tone on Friday, which Lauren Betts still finished with 26. That's how good Lauren Betts is. And El-Alfi deserved every bit of praise she got. And Caitlin Chen didn't turn the ball over in the last 3 games. Didn't shoot the ball great on Sunday. Didn't have to.
Yeah, I mean, from Caitlin perspective, like I think you saw this weekend and last weekend as well, like exactly what Gino recruited her to do because they wanted someone in that position that was experienced, that was going to be like level-headed in all these scenarios, and that just could like orchestrate the offense. And she scored the ball really well in the Elite 8 game when she had to, but she was able to kind of just step in and play her role and do what they needed her to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what Gino hoped for. She managed the game so well. Her decision-making was really good in the last 3 games because there were times this year she would drive into the lane, particularly from the baseline, and suddenly find herself in no man's land wondering, what am I doing with the basketball here, and turning the ball over. And her decision-making over the last 7, 8, 9 weeks has been significantly better than it was earlier in the season. Yeah, you still have to adapt and adjust to who you're dealing with and who your teammates are. And of course, when everybody's playing at a high level, it makes it a lot easier to manage the game because everybody's so locked in. And I thought that was the case with Caitlin. I mean, she was the perfect fit for this team, as it turns out. And here we are celebrating a natty.
Yeah, and then Jana, like you said, on Friday against Lauren Betts. Yes, Lauren Betts had 26, but I think like so much of UCLA's offense was trying to run the ball through the post. And like even if Lauren Betts isn't the one scoring, that she needs to touch the ball. And I think Jana did a great job of taking a lot of that away in terms of just being able to disrupt some of those passes into the lane and defend Betts well enough that she just didn't really have the options to kick out when she did have the ball. I thought that like she was just phenomenal in that game defensively.
Yep, agreed. She did the same thing as she did in the first South Carolina game, setting the tone. And I think the one thing, too, with UConn's small lineup when Jenna was on the bench, you know, they brought Lauren Betts out. They had that ability, and they ran her ragged. Every big that they played in this NCAA tournament, they ran them ragged. Beers got run off the floor. Marshall, I thought, played really well for USC. She probably handled the tempo better than any of the bigs. And then what they did to Lauren Betts in the Final Four game was just amazing. But Lauren got no help. That's the other thing. I mean, Betts went off, got her 26, but they got no help outside of those guys. As much as Jaquez and Gardner made threes against LSU, those are just not available against UConn in the Final Four game.
No, I mean, Doug Bruno, like you're the biggest proponent of this. UConn can score 100 points against most teams, and they have all name your offensive talent. It's the defense that's always been kind of the secret, and it hasn't been great the last couple of years. And now, like this tournament especially, look like the UConn defense that won 11 national titles.
Well, that all changed after the Tennessee game. I mean, look, I listen to you guys every week, so I know what you guys are talking about. And even, the one constant of the 3 games that they lost, they could not get stops in the fourth quarter, right? They couldn't make the 3 consistently in those games. And something needed to change. And it had to be on the defensive end because teams are right around, UConn's defense was around 30%. 3-point defense, which for them is high. It's usually mid-20s, like 25, 26, 27. I think they got it under 30 throughout the postseason. But too many threes they were giving up and just too many stops. They were just sloppy. They started extending the defense a little more, particularly on inbounds. They made life miserable for some teams on inbounds in the postseason. And they just got more locked in defensively, too. And they finally bought in. And I think probably in the last 24 hours, a video came out after the South Carolina game with Paige in the locker room saying, hey, we got to, now that we've done this, now that we have this feel of what we can do, we've got to keep this up. And if we do, we're going to win the whole thing. Well, lo and behold, their defense was spectacular. I think every opponent, either it was their season low or their second lowest number point-wise the entire season. And how many teams get over 60? Maybe one?
Just
team in the NCAA tournament? Yeah,
just
that's
USC.
it. You're keeping it, and then that's what they did in the Big East all season long. I mean, Creighton was the only team that got above 60.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're holding high-profile teams to low 60s throughout the tournament, you're going to be hard to beat. And particularly with UConn's offense, they were really in a good rhythm, dictating the pace. It was really hard for the opposition, no matter how good their offenses were, to keep up with the Huskies.
Yeah, and you pointed to that Tennessee game, too. I think it's like USC is the only team they've allowed 62 since that Tennessee game. Like, it's just really the turning point.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it was South Carolina's 3rd lowest scoring game of the season. Number 2 was the first UConn game.
Right.
Number 1 was the Elite 8 game against Duke, and they won that game.
54, right.
Yeah.
What's Paige's legacy? You've been full-time since 06, but you were there for Diana, you were there for Sue, you've been there for Maya. Yeah, you're old. I saw that little smirk.
Well, you are too.
Yeah, I know. What's Paige's legacy now that she has a ring?
Wow, given the adventure that she has had with her and her teammates, starting with cardboard cutouts at Gamble to start her career, the countless injuries that she and her teammates have gone through, I think it's right up there among the best players in UConn history. She has this innate ability, like all of the great players, to make the teammates around her better. And even when they weren't at 100%, they still found ways to get to the Final Four when she was able to play. I mean, look at all the tough breaks that they've had. I mean, Dorka breaking her wrist in the Elite 8 game, AZ getting sick before the national championship game in 22. Obviously, she didn't play in 23. Last year, I'm still amazed that they even got to the Final Four with all the injuries that they had and, basically a rotation of 6 and coming this close away from playing for the national championship. But, as good as she is, now that they had a full arsenal, she just has this innate ability. And we saw that, starting with South Dakota State in the NCAA tournament. She just said, enough's enough. I'm taking over. And for 3 straight games, she was nothing short of remarkable. And maybe that's the best thing that could have happened because in the Final Four game, yes, UCLA and South Carolina did a pretty good job on her defensively, but, her teammates stepped up, particularly AZ and Sarah. But Paige's legacy is going to be one of the all-time greats. She's pretty close to being on that Mount Rushmore. I'm not sure she's there quite yet, but she's pretty darn close. And what she was able to do and help will this team to a natty this year is pretty special. Of course, Sarah and AZ had a big part. I mean, Sarah all season long, so even keeled, and it was just fun to watch. 7 double-doubles in the postseason, if you include the Big East tournament. But Paige's legacy is cemented as one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, earlier I compared. I know everyone compares Sarah to Maya Moore, which I get. I
To
see
some
Fee,
extent.
I see Fee in her, where it's like she's just quiet, unassuming, and then you look up and oh, she's the best player on the floor with 24 and 15, and like she's not the most flashy person in the world.
No, and Fee wasn't a great three-point shooter as a freshman either. I mean, she worked really hard at that, and I'm blown away by how far Nafis has come at the pro level. I mean, I'm really proud of her. But Sarah is just at another level as a freshman. I mean, she can do so many things. She's got the softest hands any player I think I've ever seen at UConn, because anything that gets thrown her way, she's catching. And it doesn't matter how tough it is. She has just that innate ability, and she's an outstanding rebounder. I think her hands are so quick. I mean, we see that in steals and blocks all season long, a game changer. And yeah, I can't see Gino retiring anytime soon. People have said, is this it? Is he going to go out on top? I go, no, not as long as Sarah's around. And he's got another year with Sarah and AZ. So yeah, Sarah's pretty special. Really, really special player.
All right, we'll leave you with this. It's very easy to take for granted UConn, right? You grew up in Connecticut, proud of Bloomfield High, Rock Chalk Warhawk. Go back to when you started. Not to say that you're old, but like when you started, UConn men or women didn't have any national titles, right? For a farm school in Northeast Connecticut that has now 17 since 99, 8 since 2013, and 18 overall between the men and the women. Like it was nothing in the 80s.
No,
it's unfathomable, right?
Well, men's basketball, I mean, at least had a New England tradition. I mean, they were always playing for New England championships. And then, of course, they get in the Big East and they play in the 8-9 game a lot. And then Calhoun showed up along with Gino, and they totally transformed the programs into what it is today. Of course, Dan has taken the reins to another level with the men's team. But here's Gino, 40 years later. What he and Chris Daly have done for the women's team alone is nothing short of sensational. And their base, the base that they form their teams on each and every year, that hasn't changed. The talent level has changed, certainly, but they still push you to get the very best out of you. It's wild to think that how the game has changed, how conference realignment has changed. It may be a little tougher to get players to come to UConn or transfers because, A, the Big East isn't that great for women's basketball, as we all know. But you still want to play for Gino. You still want to get pushed to your limits to become the best that you can be. The WNBA, of course, is Exhibit A of that with all the talent and the Olympians that Gino has had. But what we've been able to do at UConn is extraordinary. It is one of the great stories of college sports, not only on the men's side, but particularly on the women's side, how Gino and Chris Daly have just taken this for 40 years. They have 12 national championships. Half of their Final Four visits, they've won the whole thing. So it's just a credit to those two and what they've been able to do. And I don't know if we'll ever see anything like this ever again.
Well, now you get to complain about the Red Sox for 4 months until football. So, thanks for hopping on. Follow on at Bob Joyce 27.
All right. Give my dude the boom, boom, boom when you see him later.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Bob Joyce. We promised the UConn, they won the national championship, but we promised the UConn Love Fest is over for right now. We left off Game 1 on Friday. South Carolina beats Texas. Ultimately, like what we've said for 4 months, came to fruition. They couldn't score. Like their half-court offense just didn't look good, especially in the second half. But how do you look at the season? I mean, overwhelming success. They made their first Final Four since 2003. Madison Booker's only a junior. Jordan Lee was really, really impressive, I thought, in the postseason. Brianna Preston looked like a deer in the headlights at the SEC tournament. 180 in the NCAA tournament. Like Longhorns aren't going anywhere, and we're waiting on Rory Harmon, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've heard, though. It's been 48 hours, so she has to have decided, just probably hasn't announced. But yeah, I mean, they're not going anywhere, especially if Rory's coming back. But even if Rory is not, like, this is a successful season, right? You get back to the Final Four. Yeah, it would have been great to win a national championship, but I think, like, for this program, getting back to the Final Four is definitely a great step in the right direction, and like they have potential to be just as good, if not better, next year.
Yeah, the offense, it needs to be better. Their last 6 games against bubble teams are better, and I say bubble teams because I'm not counting the 105 points they put up on 16 seed, sub 500 William & Mary, who was technically an NCAA tournament team. But like, they didn't crack 70 in their last 6 games against bubble teams. 56 in the win over LSU, 45 in a championship loss to South Carolina. They beat Illinois, they beat Tennessee, they didn't crack like 65 and 67 points, 58 against TCU, 57 against South Carolina. You can go further back since the start of February. They cracked 70 twice in 12 games against NCAA competition, minus William and Mary. Like that, like we've said, it isn't good enough to win it all.
Right.
And lo and behold, like that played out to fruition.
Yeah, exactly. I do think you saw some bright spots in the Final Four game a little bit. Like Jordan Lee, like you said, was really good. She's just a freshman. She shot the ball well. Like they need someone that can shoot the ball from three and that gets the green light to shoot the ball from three. And if Lee can be that player, I think that will let the offense take a step in the right direction. So I think that like there's things to point to, like how it can get better, but they have to get better offensively if they want to contend for a national title.
I wonder how much the Layla Filia injury impacted them, which we didn't really talk about. No one really talked about. She had a detached retina. She never really recovered. She played only 8 games. Like she scored 1,200 points at Michigan. Now, not much of a 3-point shooter, another slasher, not dissimilar to pick your other Texas offensive players. So the offense might have looked the same, but I wonder how much a 1,200 point score would have helped this. And that's something that really just kind of got glossed over, us included again. But Texas, hey, you made the Final Four. You know Vic Schaefer isn't going to have a bad team now. And now that he's been there for 4 years, he's been there long enough where it's like he's had it rolling. They finally took that next step from the Elite Eight to the Final Four. They'll be there every single year. Then game 2. No one saw, the final coming. We talked about the UConn side of it enough. I still want to point out, I know Lauren Betts, like they took away everything else. Jenna El-Alfi rightfully got praised for everything. Like she totally deserved. She played out of her mind. Betts still had 26 on 11 of 18. Only 5 rebounds, 1 block. And again, you mentioned like every time she got the ball, like she couldn't do anything else and find a teammate. And UConn deserves credit for that. But man,
she's so good.
I wish my bad games had 26 points on 11 of 18 shooting.
Yeah, exactly. I think that just says how good Lauren Betts is because, like we're saying, like UConn did a phenomenal job defensively on her, and she still had 26. And she's so good and so consistent and like so reliable for UCLA to just deliver in every single game, and that's a really good base to start with.
Otherwise, they were in hell for 40 minutes. They couldn't take care of the ball, which has been an issue at times this year. Betts showed up, and then Jaquez and Jones were 0 of 7 combined. Rice was 2 for 7. Gardner was 1 for 5. They very much look like a team playing in their first Final Four, which is a shame, given how magnificent their season was otherwise. Yeah, agreed. I thought that like UConn had an edge in this one, based on the fact that like it wasn't like the first Final Four is just like a hard, I think, Final Four to win. I think you see it a lot. Like there's not a lot of teams that make it to their first Final Four and go on to win a national championship. I think it's one from like the 80s, honestly, that has actually done it. So it is a hard place to be in because you just like don't know what you're coming into. But I didn't think it would like play out in the fashion that it did for UCLA. I'm interested in how UCLA responds. I think Duga Leach is gone. Like I've read somewhere that she has eligibility. She might go pro. If she's gone, it doesn't matter if she's gone or back. Right. Everyone else is back. Everyone. Back. Yeah, I know they had Arnasalo hit the portal yesterday. That's a tough loss. But like Betts, Rice, Jaquez, Gardner, they get Charlize Ledger-Walker, who was really good at Washington State, didn't play this year because she tore her ACL last January. She'll be healthy. They have the number 2 overall recruit, a girl named Sienna Betts, who's 6'4", and I assume as good as her sister because that's how it works, right? If we say Texas isn't going anywhere, like UCLA has a case they might be the best team in the country preseason next year. Yeah, they certainly have a case for it. I don't want to talk about preseason teams in a little bit, so I'll go into my thoughts on that yet. But like they'll be good regardless. Yeah, they're going to be very, very good next year. Like you said, like they take this team and add to it more than they're going to subtract from it, and like the expectation should be that they're going to be in Phoenix next year. Yes, it's Phoenix or bust at this point. It was their first. They won an AIAW championship in the late 70s. This was their first NCAA Final Four. I think that they will take this. Like they didn't respond well to the first USC loss and the second time. It took the third time against USC to kind of punch back. I think they'll come back and punch back the second time around. And that takes us to Sunday. The game itself, we haven't talked a whole lot about. I thought it was an interesting start. Like both teams shot the ball so well out of the gates that I think it kind of like it delayed the jitters that you normally see in a national championship game, where I think like the back half of the first quarter was like, oh, if I'm on UConn, oh, South Carolina's making shots, like I have to score every time, and then oh, UConn's making shots, I have to make mine on South Carolina, and then like the end of the first was just got a little like what I expected, frankly, at the opening tip.
Right. Yeah, it came out with such high power offense, and you're like, okay, this is not how a lot of national championships start, because they're just like, it's a big game. There's a lot of like nerves and stuff that come from being on that stage.
Even if
but yeah, it took a little bit for I think both teams to settle in, but it manifested itself in a weird way of just like a lot of made shots in offense for a little bit.
I thought the game turned at 2 points. The shade 3 at the end of the half.
Yeah.
UConn hadn't made a 3 all half. South Carolina was crashing the offensive glass. They're not shooting a great, but like they're hanging around. You think, all right, like all this, they're only going to go in down 7. They're going to have a lot of momentum because they had a couple of late buckets. And then Ashland Shade, our first field goal since the Sweet 16. Huskies go up 10. I feel like that was a big momentum swing back in UConn's favor at the break.
Yeah, and I think then you like look at South Carolina and like you're going into the locker room down double digits, and like things have largely in a lot of ways gone your way. Like UConn only has 1 3. You're doing a really good job on the offensive glass, and you're still down 10. Like I think that was kind of a bit of a
and then
that 3 was a killer. Yeah.
And then the sequence in the third, Fulwiley finally got her first bucket on the putback. She had the block and then the steal to the transition assist. They're up to they cut it to 11. Gamecocks, you think, all right, like Fulwiley, who was brutally bad in the first half, like she got that swagger, she had some defensive plays. You wonder, like, is she going to take over? Is this game not over? Timeout Gino. Fudd 3, strong 3, they're back up 16. And it's not so much the makes, but I think what happened 2 possessions later. So there's a $1:30 left in the third. UConn's up 18. Raven Johnson tries to back down KK Arnold, throws up like a wild 6-footer. It's way off. And then Sinai Fagan had position to get the ball and probably gets it like 70% of the time. Sarah Strong tips it. Bueckers keeps it alive in the baseline. Fagan commits a frustration foul, puts Bueckers on the line. And like that right there, that was straight out of February's game. A 70-30 South Carolina ball that UConn gets, and then they commit a foul. I knew right then, there's no comeback. Like Huskies are going to win the 50-50 balls now too. We're done here. Like they it seemed they sucked the life out of the Gamecocks in the last quarter and a half.
Yeah, I agree. I think like South Carolina, like I said, even down 10 at halftime, right? Like they're still like, all right, they certainly are going to have a run in them at some point, right? And then like, yeah, it just like it started ballooning, and then you said the frustration, and it's just like you could tell that they were mentally getting defeated at that point.
Like it was over in the fourth quarter, but one team attacked the ball even in the fourth quarter, like their lives depended on it, and the other looked like they were just waiting for the clock to hit 0. Huskies got 5 offensive boards on 8 misses in the fourth quarter when they're up 20, when they had every reason for it to be the other way around.
Right.
Like South Carolina, if you're going to make a run, it's now or never. Gamecocks, I think this is just a testament. Like they weren't as good as last year.
Yeah.
Right. We saw that really from like the first game. They struggled with Michigan. They just never looked like the true dominant team. And I think that we all kind of expected they'd figure it out to be eventually. And I think it's a testament that we say all this and they made it to the national championship game. And I don't think they played an A game in the NCAA tournament and they made it to the national championship game. Not many teams can do that. No one can do that except for maybe the 2 teams that played Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. I think obviously like the depth and talent is still very much on display, like you said, because like they didn't play in a game and they were still playing in the national championship game. So for South Carolina, yeah, I think it's just impressive that they were here again. Like I know another injury that we didn't talk a ton about was like the Watkins injury, but like again, huge injury that they just like they still end their season making it to the Final Four, making it to a national championship game. You lose to UConn, like it just felt like this year wasn't their year. They've had their year the last few years. Right.
Their losses, sure, the margins were big, but at UCLA, UConn, and Texas, who you beat the other 3 times, and they lost at Texas by less than 5, whatever the margin was. I take nothing away from in a negative way about anything that Dawn Staley in South Carolina does, because they and UConn are still the standards that everyone else is striving to be. And one national championship game loss, even a lopsided one, doesn't change that. they haven't had a true scorer in a long time, and I think you saw it come back to bite them. Like, and not even necessarily a true scorer, but their depth is so like overwhelmingly their strength. And on the very rare occasions where the ship's kind of teetering a little bit, like they don't have Paige Bueckers to be like, all right, I got this.
Yeah.
Or, even Sarah Strong to be like, I got this. Like I thought P.S.A opened the game with a 3. It's like, oh, okay, if South Carolina's going to get good P.S.A makes her first shot to open the scoring. Like they're in business, and she didn't score again.
Yeah.
Like they were just in the rare instance where South Carolina needs someone to come in. I just don't know. Like that's the missing piece, I think, with this team.
Yeah, I agree. I do feel like for this team, and maybe it's like Joyce Edwards next year, for example, but like for this team to be like consistently like a national champion, that's what you need, right? Like I think that's most national championship teams have a great player as well as a great team. And like a lot of, South Carolina's champions have that too. Like you had
Asia
Wilson,
and
you had Aaliyah, you had even Cardoso last year was a player that you could count on to go to in the big moments, and I think this team was just lacking that.
A very unheralded senior class that I think gets lost. Like they weren't the freshies. They didn't have an Asia Wilson, but Fagan, Hall in particular, like it's very old school. They came in as highly touted McDonald's All-Americans, and they sat behind people who were above them, and they didn't transfer, and they stuck around. And Bree Hall started for at least the last 2 years, if not the last 3. Sanaya Fagan basically sat for 3 years and earned a start, and she was magnificent from Thanksgiving onward, where she almost lost her starting job, asked for one more chance, and never left the starting lineup the rest of the year. So we're still waiting on Raven Johnson to make her decision. But I mean, I think I think it's the winningest class in South Carolina history.
It might be, yeah.
And I respect the hell out of them because they did it the traditional way. And not to say the new way is bad, just you don't see it a whole lot of McDonald's All-Americans sticking around waiting their time, and they walk away with 2 rings.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. Like you don't see that often in today's world, and that is what they did. And they lock away 2 rings, 4 Final Fours. Like it's a pretty solid college career. And I think Bree Hall said basically a much more eloquent version of that.
Yes,
in her press conference after the loss.
Yes, I think more than solid. Yes, most people would take 4 Final Fours and multiple championship rings in an undefeated season.
Yes.
The base next year, we're waiting on Raven Johnson, but Fulwiley, Tessa Johnson, Chloe Kitts, and Joyce Edwards. That's not a bad start. They bring in a top 5 recruit. They're going to hit the portal. Fulwiley, she looked awfully young in this game on Monday. I'm not going to say immature because that has negative connotations. I just think you got bad Fulwiley, and where she needs to grow now is when it's bad, she's darn near unplayable. And you saw that in the first half. She only played 7 minutes, and she got chewed out by Dawn in the first quarter. And like she is so otherworldly talented that I just think if she figures out, like it's weird. Most people have the basic things down, and they just need to become really good at them. Fulwiley does things I've never seen a female athlete do. Now she just needs to do the basic play.
Yeah. I think if in the off season they can find a way to kind of harness that and like get the basics down, like she has the potential to be so good if she can just find a way to be a little bit more consistent. Yeah,
she came in 4 minutes to go in the first, and they're down 1. She gets pickpocketed by Fudd on her first touch at midcourt after a steal. Then she tried to go one-on-one with Chen on the next possession, drove wildly into traffic, threw a weak lob to Edwards. Technically goes down as a Joyce Edwards turnover. That was fully on Fulwiley. She doesn't touch it the next 2 possessions. She comes out, gets chewed out. Second quarter, gets pickpocketed again by Fudd. But then you see the magic in the third quarter. It's like she missed a 3. She got her own rebound. She banked it in. She has a block on someone who's 7 inches taller than her, and then hounds someone at midcourt, turns into a steal, turns into an easy bucket. So like you get the good, you get the bad. If she can just find the bad, and if you look up Fulwiley portal on X, you're gonna see like dozens of people saying she needs to transfer. She doesn't start. She doesn't get enough minutes. She gets benched as soon as she makes a mistake. There's no internal indication that's happening, but like, man, she's at the perfect spot. If she wants to be an All-American, like go to another school and do what she does and make SportsCenter more nights than not, and she can be an All-American on talent alone. And then she go to the W and get eaten alive.
Right.
Because that stuff doesn't fly. Or she can learn from a Hall of Fame guard. She'll probably start next year, a Hall of Fame coach. take that otherworldly talent and athleticism. Sure, her stats might not be great. She'll get better at everything else, and she can have a long, fruitful career that she can decide when it ends versus when a WNBA team cuts you and decides when it ends.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe win another national championship or two.
Exactly.
Yeah. Last point on South Carolina, which Dawn did a media gaggle with just South Carolina people after the press conference. She thanked them as always for covering the team. I think that's underrated. You grew up, Megan, watching UConn on TV because they were on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why UConn is what it is. Yeah, they won 12 titles. That helps. Well, CBTV in 1994 started airing UConn women's basketball games. Free. Turn on the TV. They're the Huskies.
Mm-hmm.
They still might win it all in 95. Husky Mania doesn't happen without CBTV. Tennessee built what it was because Pat Summitt got the university, the fans, the media in Knoxville, in Tennessee, to care about Lady Vols women's basketball. South Carolina has built what it's become because, sure, Dawn Staley got Asia Wilson, and before that, all the great players. She got the fans, the media, to buy in and care and cover women's basketball. Wherever South Carolina is, they are there. I think that's an underrated part that not nearly enough programs have for all the growth of the game.
No, it's 100% true. There's not enough newsrooms and everything else across the country that are buying in to the women's programs in their region.
You were there, and I'm not trying to pick on them. How many Texas folks did you see?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot more UConn and South Carolina media than there was Texas or UCLA media. It was clear, and obviously you expect more, but there's a gap. You can tell.
It's easier than ever to watch teams play. Every game is somewhere. It's harder than ever to stand out because of it. So for all the national growth of the game, there's so much work to do at the local level that's impeding progress. I live in North Carolina, where I'm in a so-called college basketball mecca. I can tell you very few people care about women's basketball. NC State gets good crowds. I'll give them that. Look at the attendance at Duke, at North Carolina. It's bad. NCAA tournament. It's bad. Turn on the news. It's certainly not the men's coverage. My wife works at a TV station in Durham. They didn't send anyone to Birmingham for Duke UNC in the Sweet 16. So if I turn on the news locally and don't care, well, then how do you plan on growing? Exactly. Right. Sure, the national ratings are pretty good. The local ratings, that's where it starts. So good on Dawn Staley, who every year she does this, for thanking the local media because they're important. All right, let's talk portal. News broke this morning on 3. Olivia Miles to TCU. TCU was weird because they lost everyone, right? But now they have a bunch of giants, 6-7 human beings coming in and an All-American. Yeah. So I don't think there's going to be much drop-off, even though the team's going to look almost entirely different.
Yeah, it'll be an entirely new team, but agreed. I'm sure Miles isn't the only player in the portal that they are chasing. She's just the first one to commit. So, yeah, I think we're going to see another year of TCU being right there. And
Maryland picked up Yarden Garzone. Let me look up Maryland's next year. We're largely
they have
past
a pretty good base. I think
I'm largely past the COVID era. I still have no idea who has eligibility and who doesn't. Kayleen Smichael, Bree McDaniel, and Yarden Garzone with Sailor Poffenbarger. Yeah,
it's a pretty good, solid start.
Good base.
Yeah,
that's a good base. And then Kate Koval goes to LSU, who lost Samaya Smith. She was okay, an uneven freshman year. She started the first half of the year until Maddie Westbeld came back, but that's interesting. Are you caught up with Adia Barnes going to SMU from Arizona? That's weird.
See it. I think it is. I agree. A weird transition. I think maybe the time is up at Arizona.
It seemed toxic.
Yeah.
A lot of players transferred out in the last couple of years. I think people read the tea leaves, and she's had a bunch of players going with her to SMU, but a lot more transferred. They lost in the first round of the WBIT, and it was a weird press conference of basically saying we didn't care, and it seems weird, but it also shows you how hard it is off a national championship run in 2021, where they were a 3 away from winning the whole thing. They had a top 10 recruiting class immediately after, and they went out quietly in the round of 32 in 22 and 23. They missed the tournament period the last 2 years. It got weird. It's so easy when you have all the best players at UConn and at South Carolina. It's not. Go look at the top recruiting classes from 2022 who are all seniors. Yeah, UConn and South Carolina are on the list. They're not number 1 and number 2. They're on there. UCLA is good. You know who else was on there? Oregon.
Yeah.
Oregon State, bit different, not their fault. Georgia, not good. Arizona, not good. Stanford, fell apart. Minnesota, not good. Missed the tournament. Miami, missed the tournament. It's really cool to have top 10 recruiting classes, top 15, top 20 recruiting classes. I'm done hearing, oh, UConn and South Carolina get all the best players. Oh, South Carolina has 10 McDonald's All-Americans. Great. So do a lot of other people.
Right. Yeah.
It's really hard to win. It's really hard to sustain it. Yeah.
Yeah. To keep that talent and develop that talent. That is what sets Gino and Dawn and the other team programs that have able to have that kind of sustained success apart.
Yeah. It's I'm over, especially in the age where there's a lot more good players that,
right.
Yes, UConn has 3 number 1 overall recruits. That helps. You got to develop them.
Yeah.
Dawn has 10 All-American, McDonald's All-Americans. That helps. Got to develop them. All right. We're going to close. I was told to try to coerce you into a way too early bracketology. Am I going to disappoint Aaron?
You might. I'm going to try. It's just,
yes.
To me, it's so hard to do. Like,
you're just making it up.
I know. That's why I don't like it, because it's just, I don't like putting things out there that, like, feel unresearched, which it will feel unresearched.
Well, at the very least, I'm going to make you do a way too early top 5 when we have no idea where half these players are still going to go. We know Olivia Miles is out, so give me your way too early preseason top 5 for next year. And remember, folks, the rankings don't matter.
Yeah.
So if we're going to annoy you here, they literally do not matter one iota.
I'm going to go UConn number 1 overall. I know I've seen some things that don't have them. I know they're losing Paige. I think when you win Final Four in a national championship game by close to 30 points, you get to start the season at number 1, especially when you're bringing back Sarah Strong and AC Fide. And then I think UCLA at 2, like we said earlier, like they're bringing basically everything back. They're adding pieces that are going to be more than what they lose. I think they're going to be very good. And then South Carolina at number 3. I feel like there's probably not much opinion to argue with that as like the top 3 teams coming into next year. I think most people would probably say those 3.
Yep.
I think like at 4 is where it starts to get more interesting, because I think there's less clear definition. I think I know I saw yours already, so I know you also have LSU at 4, yes. But I do feel like that is probably, I think, Flau'jae coming back, Michaela Williams, you just added Kate Cavell, so you've got something more coming back in the post now. Like they've got some good recruits coming in.
Number 1 class in the country.
Yeah, like I think LSU is going to be very good. I think I would put Texas at 5, like I said, especially if Rory comes back. Like they've got a fair amount coming back as well, so I think they're going to be right back where they were this year.
So at the same top 4, and don't forget, like South Carolina, they're going to get full Wiley kits. Tessa Johnson, Edwards will wait. Raven Johnson. They'll get Ashlyn Watkins back. Maybe not for the start of the year. She tore ACL in December, but eventually, I assume she'll be back. And that's that's the second best rim protector in the country behind Lauren Betts. So that's a nice addition whenever she comes back. I thought about Tennessee at 5. Give me Oklahoma. Reagan Beers. I thought Peyton Verhulst was out of eligibility. She is not. Sahara Williams and Zaya Van, she'll be a sophomore. They have the number 1 recruit in the country, and Aaliyah Chavez, who is apparently just a bucket getter. If they can clean up the turnovers, they'll be really, really, really good. Because they play a unique style. They lead the country in possession for 40 minutes. They have a big. They can shoot a ton of threes. Yeah, I'm really high in Oklahoma if they can take care of the ball. All right, well that's it. Megan, what are we doing this summer? Where are we going? You're a world traveler.
Yes, I am going to Italy. In like 2 months from today, I will be in Italy. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
What are we doing in Italy?
I'm going to Rome.
Eating pizza and pasta?
Yeah. Eating pizza, pasta, drinking wine, going to Tuscany, Lake Como. So it should be a good trip.
I was about to say wee, but that's the wrong country. We were there last year. Going to Disney next week.
No, I'm fine. Are you excited?
No, I'm going with 3 children under the age of 4. So no, but that's okay. Thank you to everyone for tuning in all year long. First year we had video. First year that we did a full season. This is episode 23, 24. It's a lot of episodes. So thank you for listening to our ramblings. Things we got right, things we got wrong. I didn't put a curse on the winner of the UConn UCLA game. Look at us. So hopefully we'll be back next year. For now, I think the press break goes on through the WNBA.
Go through W. Yep.
So they're every week, and hopefully we'll be back in the fall talking more hoops as a defending champs. UConn will go for title number 13, and UCLA will go for number 1, and South Carolina will go for number 4, and all try to chase each other. So folks, enjoy the off season and enjoy summer.